Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Lyss, one of your regular hosts, and I am here on the show. It's late. Cut me some slack on the technical issues that are inevitably coming, but it's all going to be made up for by my fantastic guest that I have today. Annie, welcome to Game Over Winnipeg. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing all right. How about you? I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm great, and I'm feeling much better now after, quite the roller coaster, I'll say, that the Winnipeg Jets have taken me on over the last little bit. But I'm really happy to be here chatting with you this evening to talk a little bit about this 3-2 Winnipeg Jets win that we saw this evening. So, Annie, before we get started, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you and why I brought you on the show today?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like you should answer that one. I'm still wondering the same thing. No, so I am a hockey, well, I guess the way you and I know each other is through TikTok and on hockey TikTok, but I'm a content creator, podcaster, host, what have you, throughout on hockey social media. So that's the place that we've been able to connect and finally collaborate and come together to talk about our respective teams. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I guess a little bit more. I'm based in Southern California, grew up a lifelong Ducks fan. So usually that's what my content is based around, but I pay attention to the entire league, especially this year when your hockey team is not doing too hot and you got to watch some competitive hockey elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris in the chat says, happy times in Tankland with a little duck emoji. And Audie from Game Over Calgary says hello. Audie and I will have lots to discuss, I'm sure, between our teams having a battle of the mid right now. The Calgary Flames secured a nice regulation loss.
What's that Twitter meme? They're having a mid-off?
Those girls, yeah. Which one's me? Which one's Audie? We could be either one on any given night. But the Vegas Golden Knights secured a regulation win tonight over the Calgary Flames. So, but the Nashville Predators also won. I finally went in on the score and turned on game notifications for Nashville, Seattle, and Calgary just because I need to keep an eye on this wild card race and make sure that the Winnipeg Jets are still in contention up there. But they did what they had to do tonight and snuck out 2 points against this Anaheim Ducks team. So, Annie, like you said, is a Ducks fan. So going into this game, I was really hoping in particular to see a little bit of Winnipeg Jets power play resurgence. So the Jets power play has been rough, to say the least, in the last couple of games, last couple of weeks, all that good stuff. And I was thinking selfishly, hey, maybe we're going to see a team today that's not the greatest. And the power play definitely did not figure out their woes.
You don't have to sugarcoat anything around me. It's fine.
But
I know the team sucks. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I saw some things that I liked from this Ducks team tonight, but at the same time, it was the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, this is a team that's at the bottom of this wacko Western Conference, and the Winnipeg Jets were able to capitalize on it in a couple of ways. But from your end, what are your kind of general thoughts on what you saw from this game tonight, from either side, from Jets side or from the Ducks side?
Coming off that, I kind of knew it coming off that, because I was actually at the game, the Kings Flames game earlier this week, and when the Flames were just absolutely spanked by the Kings, I'm like, oh, the Flames are gonna come back and absolutely spank the Ducks the next night, which they did. So I figured Dostal would be in net tonight, and I thought, despite those 2 goals that I'm sure he wishes he had back, I thought he played really well, especially given how outshot that this team constantly puts their goaltenders in. I thought the Ducks, for the most part, kept up with the Jets, despite the fact that every time they scored, the Jets responded. But it was very clear, on which team was fighting for a playoff spot and which team was just eliminated from from playoff contention earlier this week. And it kind of makes you think a little bit. And I know I've seen a lot of talk, when you're coming into a rebuilding team, you're really trying to put these players together and figure out your identity. And I think in a rebuilding process, it's very hard to do that. And I think the Ducks are still figuring that out. And they may not figure it out until next year. But I really liked what I saw today, despite the score. And plus, losses lately, you're aiming for that. You're aiming for 31 and 32 at this point. in the league standings. So overall, Ducks fans are pretty happy with the result. And, you can't be too mad about the play on the ice either. I mean, that Cam Fowler goal, I mean, I think Chris was the one that said it, but he said it perfectly on Twitter. He said that puck had eyes, and it truly did. You watch that shot go in slow motion, and you're just wondering, like, how the hell does that? That's like a movie, like a sports movie where they're showing like a goal go in, and they have the camera like right on the ball of the puck, and you just kind of see the players like moving out of the way, and it somehow ends in the net or ends over the wall or something. That's what it reminded me of. Like, just little things like that just kind of make this just disappointing season just a little bit better. So overall, a wanted result with not too bad of a performance on the ice, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially I thought right off the bat, the Winnipeg Jets were pretty good. Obviously, that there was a shift early on. I want to say it was the second or third shift of the game where the Jets pulled off a full ozone change, and they had, I want to say, 90 seconds or more of full possession in the offensive zone, and that continued to be a little bit of a trend in that first period there. I thought that the Winnipeg Jets had decent possession and then didn't cave in the third period, which, I mean, the bar is on the ground, but it's nice that they didn't make us dig on that tonight. But I thought in the middle of the game, possession-wise as well, like I think there were a couple parts at the end of the first, partway through the third and the second as well. Like, the Ducks had some really great possession that they were generating, especially at the end. Like, I thought there was some great energy from that team. Like, the crowd seemed super into it, even though it looked like it was a pretty empty arena and everything. Like, it just seemed like the team, I don't know. It's the kind of thing that, from an outside perspective, from a market who doesn't watch a ton of Ducks games, it feels a little bit encouraging in different ways. Like, just seeing the players out there, banging pucks around at each other and coming up with these really fun, awesome chances that have me as a Jets fan on my couch screaming at my defenders and being like, are you kidding me right now? But from a Ducks perspective, like, that's always what you're looking for.
Definitely. And I think, you kind of, especially now at this time, we're near I think there's 10 games left for the Ducks for the rest of the season. At this point, you're just kind of saying to yourself, okay, let's get the young guys, get guys, some chances to see, what we can build on going into next season. And there's a lot to be excited about here, especially despite going into the draft with presumably, and fingers crossed, because you never know with that lottery, how that's going to go, with a chance at a high pick. But there's just so much stacked young talent on this team and in this system and in, the NCAA tournament that's happening right now, where the future is very bright here. And the fact that, I think the fans are they've not necessarily bought into the rebuild, I would say, but kind of, bought in probably, but kind of going along with the idea, saying, okay, like, this season sucked, but, you're going to have down years if you want to be a contender again. You look at all the teams that are competing and that are cup contenders now, and all of them have top draft picks. And that's, this is a fan base for a lot of these fans. They have not been through a full rebuild, because we had Bob Murray for 13 straight seasons where there was never a rebuild. He never had to fully tear this down, and because he was never willing to at that, but never willing to tear down the team and rebuild it back up from that point. So this is definitely some growing pains for not only the organization, but for the fans as well. But I think with exciting players like the Zegrases, the McTavishes, the Drysdales, Lukas Dostal, who's going to be an amazing goaltender. He'll make, without a doubt, and he should. If he's not on that starting roster come October 2023, I will be very shocked and very disappointed, because he's absolutely NHL ready. But there's a lot to be excited about, a lot to look forward to. I didn't even mention Troy Terry, who I think is, I could speak just absolute praises about all day long. But yeah, the future's bright. There's some exciting moments despite, what the stage of the franchise as they're in now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing that I always say is if you're the GM or the owner of a team, you want your fans to be excited. So if they're not excited about being a contender or being, having the chance to win a competitive hockey game every single night, get them excited about the future and throw your young talent out there, which I definitely saw on full display tonight with the Ducks and, in particular, at the end there where they pulled the goalie, which again, with 3 or so minutes left is fantastic. They had lots of chances. And the Winnipeg Jets, I was getting pretty scared there for a bit, but who's right out there, right in the mix is Mason McTavish, right? Like, you got some of these young guys up there that are going to be in that similar role for years to come, but it's great that they trust them and all that good stuff. But like you said, they're not quite there yet. So obviously a couple of pains within this roster, just kind of the way that they execute in a couple of different areas. I thought that the Winnipeg Jets were able to maintain possession a little bit better tonight than they have been in a couple of previous, matchups I've seen against some stronger teams that are better at jumping on pucks or, maintaining their own possession or creating those turnovers and all that good stuff. But tonight, one thing that the Winnipeg Jets have been struggling in my opinion, is just their ability to use all 5 men at 5-on-5 to create chances, and not just create those initial chances, but jump on those secondary chances as well. And I think in most of the goals you saw tonight, I should have thought this through before I said it, at least the Kyle Connor goal and the Mason Upton. Yes, all 3 goals tonight came from proper net driving and crashing the net and being able to capitalize on any form of rebound or extra uncontrolled puck that came out of that. So did you have any thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets goals that you saw tonight, and what did you think of any of the 3? Take your pick.
Well, that's when you talk about like crashing the net, it kind of, I mean, you're talking to a Ducks fan here, where a fan favorite, Corey Perry, he was known for that. And it's just, it's one of those things where you're like, it doesn't, the pretty goals are nice, but it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to go in. So crashing the net is absolutely a vital, I don't even know where I was going with that at that point. But no, I honestly, on the Ducks broadcast, which I'm sure you were watching the Winnipeg broadcast, but the Ducks broadcast, they brought up that Kyle Connor had gone 11 games without scoring a goal, which was, the last time the Ducks and the Jets faced off. He had a hat trick that game. So I was like, he's going to score tonight. Like, that's just going to happen. Of course, second goal. Was it second goal of the game or first? No, second goal.
Second goal, yeah.
He got, right?
Yeah.
Or was it the first goal?
No, it was the second one. Mason Appleton was first, then it was Connor, and then it was Laus.
Okay. Oh yeah. And then I saw your boy Pierre-Luc Dubois got the apple on that one.
Thank goodness.
I was like, oh, she's gonna talk about that.
Yeah, well, both of those freaking guys need to step their game up. Like the whole, like you said, 11 games. I'm sure that that's something that opposing broadcasts have been talking about for quite some time. Like, and even though he's been goalless in 11 games, he's probably had like 4 goals over the course of the last like freaking 30 games. Like, he hasn't been good in a while, and so that drought was definitely something that was impacting him. You could see it visibly on his face when he scored. It was like, thank goodness. And Pierre-Luc Dubois being a major contributor to that goal was great as well, because that's a player who's, to me tonight, he looked his best that he has since he returned from injury. He's been back for maybe 4 or 5 games now, and he's looked like crap. But tonight I thought he looked okay. Do you have any thoughts on Pierre-Luc Dubois and what you saw from him tonight?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I said, did you have any thoughts on Pierre-Luc Dubois' game tonight, or did you notice anything from that player?
I did keep an eye on him a little bit because I figured he would come up in conversation. No, I mean, like you said, when a player comes back from injury, it definitely takes a little bit of time to, get their legs under them and get, comfortable back, with the pace of play and everything. I feel like a team like Anaheim's a pretty solid team to get that confidence back and get that under, especially when you're fighting for a playoff spot like this. So I figured coming into this conversation, you'd be pretty happy, pretty content. I know a goal was what you were asking for at least, but I'd say getting a point on the board, solid night for him.
Absolutely. And I think any night that I don't want to lose my mind, he's easily one of the most like interesting players in the Winnipeg Jets night in, night out, because the last couple of games have been out of character for him because he hasn't been super impactful. That's the word I like to use for Pierre-Luc Dubois, because he's very impactful. It's not always good. I'm not going to pretend it's always good. But
right.
He usually has a very strong presence in any game, and I thought that came back a little bit tonight. He did his classic net drive, draw a penalty at the end of the game there, and all that good stuff. Not that the Winnipeg Jets need a power play or anything like that, because it's not doing much for them lately, but, nice to see that little bit of resurgence there from him.
Absolutely.
But before we move on to the next thing that I want to talk about, I'm just going to play a quick ad read. Guys, I haven't done a pre-recorded ad in a very long time, so I hope this works. And if it doesn't, then I'll just do a read later. It's late. That's what I'm going to blame it on, not my technical incompetence. That's not what it is. It's totally just that it's late. So I'll get this rolling, and then I'm going to ask Annie a follow-up question. It's March Mania at Sports Interaction. NHL, NBA, March Madness, MLB, and so much more. It's bananas. Play Piñata Picks and Minute Madness, exclusive games with insane odds that you can't play anywhere else. Make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario using the QR code that you see at the bottom of my screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SGPN to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Okay, guys, it worked. It worked. I have the YouTube stream on my phone. I was like, please work. And it did. So anyways, we're all good. So that was an ad read from our friends at Sports Interaction. So Annie, if you had to bet to finish up the season here, who are the two teams in the Western Conference that you're taking in those two wildcard spots? Like, let's say that as it stands today, the top three teams in each division will stay as they are, and you have to choose between the Winnipeg Jets, the Calgary Flames, the Seattle Kraken, and the Nashville Predators. What are your thoughts there?
I feel bad because I went on Audie show and I said that I thought that the Flames would make the playoffs, but after what I've seen this past week, because I was looking, we were kind of looking at their schedule when I was on Game Over Calgary, and I was like, I could see, this team has the capability to, knock out the rest of the schedule, but especially what I saw against LA on Monday night and the little bit of what I caught against Vegas tonight, I'm not so sure that's gonna happen. I think I'm comfortable where they are now. And I know that's a little scary to say because things always move and anything can happen. There's some of these guys have, anywhere between 8, 9, the
probably
the Jets
9 and 12 games
right?
left. Like, I think
9 and 12. Yeah. I was like, math is hard. Whatever. 9 and 12 games left. Anything can happen there. And I think that's the biggest advantage that the Predators have right now. I'm just, I hope not. I think Nashville's such a boring team to watch, so I hope they don't make the playoffs.
And
2017 still sells.
So true. 2018 is mine. I hate them. I think we were reunited on this.
Oh my
front.
God, I root for their demise every day. I want that window to just shut closed. Jeez.
No, for real. And I hate it when teams who sell end up trickling into the playoffs because it's like you don't even want to be here. Like, go away.
You don't even want to be here. Ariana, what are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Literally. No. That was
me.
me.
From the guard. Why are you here?
That was me with Seattle winning the Pacific Division earlier on in the year. I'm like, Ariana, what are you doing here? I was like, this is so weird. But now they're back where they belong. So
we knew that wasn't gonna last too. Like, respectfully, like, listen, the Pacific is still pretty tight. Like, 4 points away from Edmonton's not terrible, and they've got a game on hand with them. But Seattle's a fun team, though. That's a team I definitely not respectfully slept on, but I just slept on in general. I see the Jets hanging on for one of those wild card spots. I'm gonna speak it into existence that Nashville doesn't. I need Calgary to get their stuff together, though, because I want to be right on Audie. I want to have some credibility with Audie and the Game Over Calgary crowd. But okay, I'm gonna go Winnipeg, and I'm gonna swap them. I think Seattle's gonna fall to that second spot, but Winnipeg will take that first one.
Yeah, I think Winnipeg obviously doesn't have games in hand, so the points are a bit skewed right now. But strength of schedule is something that they have definitely in their advantage. Usually I complain about my team's schedule. I'm always like, oh, we have so many hard teams to play against, while refusing to look at other teams and acknowledging that they also have hard teams to play against. But I can fully admit that right now, the Winnipeg Jets have only one back-to-back left this season, and they have some easier teams lined up and all that good stuff. Like, for example, tonight they had Anaheim. Last game was Arizona. My mental calendar is all over the place, but they have I think 2 more games against San Jose, and so they have a couple of opportunities to really secure their bag, which is nice. And they don't have to do it in as short of a time span. They only have one back-to-back, so that means little things like they can play Connor Hellebuck a little bit more if they need to and all that good stuff. So I do believe they'll make their way into that playoff spot, but it doesn't seem like any of these 4 teams really wants it that bad. They're all just kind of hanging out. But tonight, I really do think I saw a little bit more from the Winnipeg Jets that I wanted to, just a little bit more. I thought the third line was really cooking. The Mason Appleton goal was obviously nice, and Adam Lowry, it was nice to see him get one as well. I just thought that the bottom 6 in general were playing pretty hard and playing pretty heavy, which is always nice. They seem to have a little bit more go in them, which is always good, and it just need to translate that into the top 6 guys who actually know how to score instead of forcing games to be won by goals from Mason Appleton and Adam Lowry. But I think the fact that they didn't cave in the third period and the fact that they gave up a couple of goals that they shouldn't have given up and were able to respond, little things like that were really encouraging for me tonight. So I feel okay about saying I think this team makes it into a wild card spot. Doesn't sound very convincing, does it?
It does. No, 'cause, I mean, it's hard to say with the end of the season. You just never know what can happen and what teams can get hot. But like you said, all those things that you saw tonight are things that make for good playoff teams. You need your bottom six to be absolutely locked in for the playoffs, because those are you talk about depth is what takes you far. You get those character bottom six guys that really step up and score those big goals. Doesn't have to be pretty goals, but they score big goals. But the fact that the Ducks had the lead, we're up 1-0, and then the Jets tied it up. The Ducks took the lead again. That was Frank Vetrano scored the. What was the order?
Yes, it was Fowler, Vetrano.
Yeah, that's right. Just kind of responding each and every time. And you want, granted they weren't big leads they had to catch up on, but it was still, you're down 1 goal. You don't get down on it. You just put your nose down, you get physical, which, Winnipeg's a very physical team. They're able to do that and get back on the board. And those are all good things and good characteristics you want to see when you're getting down to the wire and going into the playoffs. So if you're a Jets fan, I would be very pleased, despite I say this knowing that the team you played against tonight is not playoff caliber, but I would be very pleased with what you saw from your team tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's the kind of thing where, you could look at it from both ways, because I agree. And it's the kind of thing where you can't develop too much of a sense of self-confidence when it's, that's not the caliber of competition you'll be seeing to close out the season or to start off the postseason if that's where you end up. But at the same time, it's nice that they didn't walk into this game. Obviously, results are extremely important to this team right now. But it's nice when teams don't walk into an easier matchup, quote unquote, on paper, and expect it to be handed to them or expect that they don't have to play as hard. Because to me, this team did play hard tonight. And so it's good to know that they're willing to put in the work and all that good stuff. But speaking of putting in the work and players who I thought showed up tonight, I want to talk a little bit about Dylan DeMelo. So for those of you who are regular listeners on the show, you know that Dylan DeMelo is one of my favorites, and he was instrumental in that Mason Appleton goal to open up the game. I thought Dylan DeMelo was a ton of fun tonight, and he is the type of player that I would make highlight reels of and show my kids that I coach in hockey if I were a hockey coach, because I think he does so many of the little things right. If he's racing for a puck, he'll do like an extra little hip check or, joust for the puck first and then scoop it back and pass it around instead of just going and banging away at it or going and laying out the body when there's no proper positioning to, generate any sense of turnover whatsoever, which I find is an area of weakness with some players in the Jets. But I thought Dylan DeMelo was a good example of a couple of the things that the Jets did well tonight, which was being a little bit more creative and a little bit more strategic with the way that they are playing offensively. And I don't know if part of that comes from not playing against a team that's as strong. I'm trying not to be mean, but it's the same thing where it's like I mean about my team, I can be mean about other teams.
It's fine. I can be mean. Chris, if you're still here, tell her she can be mean. Chris, tell her she can be mean if you're still in the chat.
It's when it's a weaker team that you're playing against, you have a little bit more time to make decisions. So I thought that they had a little bit more time in the offensive zone, which helped to lead to them having a little bit more, some stronger chances and all that good stuff. So I feel like offensively tonight, the Winnipeg Jets stepped up their game, which has been an area of weakness. And, Jeff is in the chat saying that, speaking of tank, it was beyond empty for Blake Wheeler. Definitely an area of weakness for the Jets tonight was Blake Wheeler. And I think that pretty much everyone in the top six outside of him really contributed to the offense tonight, which is something that we've been lacking. We haven't seen the entirety of the top six be good at the same time in quite some time. So I think that was a flash that I saw signs of that made me feel good. I was like, okay, this is encouraging. But Blake Wheeler, man, oh man, I don't know. I always feel bad throwing people on the spot, because if you were to ask me like specifics about like each individual Ducks player, I'd be like, I was not watching them very closely because I'm always picking holes in my team. But any thoughts on Blake Wheeler tonight and anything you saw from that guy?
Not much, honestly. Remember, what's his streak? They brought up his goalless streak.
More than Kyle Connor's. 13, 14, 15, 16.
I think it was like, no, yeah, something like that. So I did try to catch on, like, because they also mentioned, because it was an interesting point, was that Blake Wheeler's been, the Jets leading scorer, at least 3 or 4 seasons?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So, like, and it's kind of like same situation with Kyle Connor. When you have those guys that are just such playmakers so impactful to your team. When they go silent, like it's very noticeable. When you have a guy like that, not getting on the scoreboard, not contributing as much as he would like to, like it goes, it's one of those things where it kind of goes, it's very noticeable, which is unfortunate if you're a player and you're like going through one of those struggle, kind of rough patches there. But from what I paid attention, like you said, I'm a little busy kind of watching my players, but from what I could pick up from Blake Wheeler, because every time he was on the ice, I'm like, watch him break his score. Just watch him break the scoreless streak, also along with Kyle Connor. That kind of, I feel like, is he, not to say, I don't want to be rude.
Be rude.
When
it's
I was
Blake
like,
Wheeler,
all right,
it's okay.
It was like a regenerate, like it wasn't like a Kyle Connor kind of thing where you could see like, yo, this dude just wants to get the monkey off of his back. I kind of really didn't see that from Blake Wheeler.
No, I think he's a player that wants it but doesn't have the resources anymore to work for. I think that player is old, and I think that player has run out of steam. I feel that he would be so much more useful in a little bit more of a sheltered role with lesser minutes. I think he'd be more impactful if he was able to do that. But that's not the case. They will continue to roll him out in the top 6 until he retires or tells them to stop or something, because it doesn't seem like anything will take him out of the top 6. But I think that he's a player that, if you look at tonight, there was a lot of good that came from this, particularly the 2 points. That's my favorite part of this game. But he was one area that was a little bit of a pain point for me. So hopefully as the Jets move forward throughout the season, what is it? I think 9 games remaining now. They realize that players like Morgan Barron can play in a little bit of a more impactful role, and players like Blake Wheeler can afford to sit back a little bit and whatnot. But, only time will tell when it comes to Rick Bowness. So that kind of covers the gist of what I wanted to speak on the Winnipeg Jets tonight. But I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the Ducks and about their power play, because I was just curious if this is an area of strength relative to some of their other areas of play, whether it's their penalty kill or 5-on-5, because tonight I thought the Winnipeg Jets penalty kill looked a little bit more, there's a word I'm looking for, like they just looked a little bit more on edge and a little bit more like they were chasing than they normally do. Usually their PK looks pretty solid, and I thought that tonight I actually was a little bit more worried than I was expecting to be against the Anaheim Ducks.
It's funny because like the very beginning of the year, I think the first half, you would say like the Ducks were literally bottom of both. I think at one point they were 32 and maybe 31 at both power play and penalty kill. But then I think it was after the All-Star break where all of a sudden like just skyrocketed immediately. And of course it kind of evened out as it usually does. But like if you had just started watching the Ducks like immediately after the All-Star break, like you would think this team was like a special teams absolute phenom. Like they have, and even last year, despite the fact that I know obviously a lot of players are gone from last year, but even last year they were able to put up a solid positioning even when they kind of came back down to earth and back to reality in the second half. Good on the penalty kill, on the power play. Obviously netting a power play goal tonight was super nice. But at literally at a lot of points in the first half of the season, like if they went on the penalty kill, they're like, just give them the goal. Like, let's just not even bother with this. And even like shorthanded goals too. The Ducks have given up so many shorthanded goals. It's been absolutely painful. But I mean, I think that pretty much sums up my thoughts on that entire situation here.
It's so funny.
No, I was pretty.
Go for it.
I think they're still actually in the bottom of the league in terms of, I have not checked as far as rankings go, but I think they're still near the bottom of the standings for the power play, but I could be wrong. Let me check that.
That's okay. And you know what?
I should have had those stats up. I should have had those stats up.
I am so bad. I think my dad told me that the Winnipeg Jets penalty kill was like second in the league tonight, and I was like, really? I didn't know that. I was like, I knew it was good, but I don't know. But
the Ducks are second to last. Okay, yeah, they're still bad.
Well, you know what? If it helps at all, I thought that there was some decent movement on there today, and I was like, wow, this is actually a scarier power play than I thought I was going to be seeing tonight.
I mean, that percentage. I mean, they're at 16.16. That's definitely improved since probably in 2023. That's what's brought that up certain percentage, because there is no way that was that it would have, if they had continued playing the same way they did in the first half, there's no way that would still be the case.
Chris in the chat says that the Ducks power play is usually way too stationary. They would get the puck to Zegras and then just stand around. That was one thing I noticed tonight. It was so funny. I think 2 or 3 times they did the player gets the puck, goes down the right wall, passes to the guy at the goal line, who one times it to the guy in the slot. Like, I feel like that's one of the most set power play plays that every team does now. Every time they start moving down, you see the guy back up to behind the goal line. I'm like, I know what's coming. We all know what's coming. So maybe that's interesting that Chris calls it stationary, because that's my issue with the Jets power play, and they're also big into repeated set plays that you can see coming from a mile away. So maybe it was just because I don't trust some of my bottom 6 forwards, and even though they're good penalty killers, I get pretty uneasy about it. And also, I think I just miss seeing a power play and thinking that there's a chance that a team could score, because that's really not what it's been on my end for the last little while. But so this was game 1 of the Winnipeg Jets road trip into Calgary. Jeepers Creepers. My mind is all over the Western Conference right now. California. Where so they obviously were in Anaheim tonight. LA, they're having a matinee, or I guess, is it 3 p.m. a matinee? I guess, yeah, it is. It's a 3 p.m. game.
Yeah, that's
for
1
us.
p.m. here. So yeah, that's a matinee.
Matinee on Saturday, and then they play a 9:30 Central start against San Jose on Tuesday, which sounds awful. So Brady's taking one for the team and taking that one, so that'll be lots of fun. But it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, every game for the rest of the season is a big one for the Jets, and is a big one for the Ducks too, because the more losses, the better the odds are at Bedard. And even if it's not Bedard as an individual, there are a couple of really sharp young guys that are lining up to be in that top 5, 6, 7 players in that draft. So exciting times ahead for a lot of teams. Mushy middle is the worst place to be, and I would consider the Winnipeg Jets to be part of that in a certain extent, but at least there is still a little bit of excitement that this team can make playoffs. My family put down a deposit on playoff tickets, which is always a ton of fun. So hopefully the Winnipeg Jets give us something to cheer about, and hopefully the Ducks give you something to cheer about over the course of the next couple of months. So thank you so much, Annie, for joining me tonight. It's been a ton of fun. It's about 12:30 p.m. in Winnipeg. So for those of you who are in the chat live, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. For my Winnipeg locals, I'm sure many of you will be listening back to this tomorrow as opposed to live tonight, and I do not blame you in the slightest. But thank you so much for checking us out as always. You'll always catch us here after every game. Annie, you have been a fantastic guest. Before we sign off this evening, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and what kind of content you're creating and what they can look for?
You can find me on social media, any platform, at Sweet Annie OD. It's a lot of either rant videos or fun skits, or just tweeting nonsense into the Twitterverse regarding sports. So fun, lighthearted sports stuff. Don't take it too seriously. Just around to have a good time. So that pretty much sums it up, I would say.
Excellent. Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, never take it that seriously, especially when you're out there throwing things into the void on Twitter, on TikTok, and all that good stuff. Before we sign off tonight, I just wanted to share a quick comment, obviously, for those of us who pay attention to things going on outside of just our own individual markets, would have obviously seen the trend of some disappointing news continuing into the Florida Panthers and, I believe, Toronto Maple Leafs game tonight, with the Stahl brothers coming out and using religion to kind of defend their views on certain things, which we could talk about for quite some time. And I just wanted to quickly, before we close the show, let everyone know that at SCPN and here on Game Over Winnipeg and on any of our shows, this is always a safe space for anyone, and that we love Pride Night. We love any kind of night that is inclusive of all communities in hockey, and we believe that diverse perspectives and diverse hockey fans are what make the game so fantastic. So my heart goes out to everyone who's disappointed by the news. I know I'm continually disappointed by these players, and saying these things and defending these actions and making hockey fans that are part of the LGBTQ plus community feel as though they are not welcome, that they are not important to this fandom. They are, you are, and you are so loved. So thank you so much for being here.
Love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this fine evening. For those of you who are on YouTube, make sure you like the stream before you head out. And for those of you who are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, all that good stuff, thank you for being here. And we will see you on Saturday after the next game. So take care, everyone.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.